Have you ever felt like everything in your life is taking too long to manifest? That project that won't take off, that relationship that's not moving forward, that goal that seems to slip further away with each step you take. And then, inevitably, that thought arrives. I'm failing. Perhaps you're feeling it right now, that piercing sensation that settles in your chest and whispers that you're not enough, that you're moving too slowly, that others would have already achieved it. But what if I told you that you're not failing at all? What if what you interpret as failure is actually your soul learning one of the most valuable lessons a human being can experience? Patience. That quality which, according to Carl Jung, is the doorway to our deepest transformation. Jung, one of the most revolutionary thinkers in modern psychology, left us a legacy that few have had the courage to fully explore. He understood that the path to our true self is neither linear nor immediate. It's a process, often painful, where what seems like stagnation is actually preparation, where what we interpret as delay is actually the time necessary for our unconscious to integrate the changes we're experiencing. How many times have you tried to force an outcome just because you felt it was time already? Jung reminds us that chronological time, the time our clocks measure, is not the same time our soul needs to evolve. Your inner being has its own rhythm, and when you try to accelerate it based on external expectations, you create an internal conflict that only generates more suffering and disconnection. Think about those moments when you felt everything is conspiring against you, that no matter how hard you try, doors won't open. Jung wouldn't see this as failure, but as a message from the unconscious, telling you that perhaps you're pushing in the wrong direction, or that there are still lessons you need to learn before moving forward. It's not rejection, it's protection. Your soul knows exactly what you need and when you need it, even if your conscious mind can't see it yet. The modern world constantly bombards you with messages of immediate success. Build your empire in 30 days. Find the love of your life in a week. Transform your body in record time. This obsession with speed has created an impatient, anxious generation, constantly dissatisfied with their progress. But Jung knew that true transformation doesn't happen in an instant. It's a process of decomposition and recomposition, of death and rebirth that cannot and should not be rushed. Remember the last time you felt you had failed at something important? That project that didn't turn out as expected, that relationship that ended painfully, that goal you never reached. In that moment, you were probably overwhelmed by a sense of failure. But what if you could see that experience through Jung's eyes? He would show you that what you perceived as failure was actually a necessary detour, a redirection of your energy towards something more aligned with your true self. Jung spoke extensively about synchronicity, that phenomenon where seemingly casual events align meaningfully in our lives. What if those supposed failures were actually synchronicities designed to redirect you? Every closed door, every rejection, every apparent failure could be exactly what you need to find your true path. It's not that the universe is against you. It's working for you, even if you can't see it at that moment. Impatience, according to Jung, is a manifestation of our ego trying to control the uncontrollable. When we resist the natural rhythm of our evolution, we create an internal tension that disconnects us from our essential being. It's like trying to force a bud to open before its time. It's not only useless, but can damage the flower destined to bloom. Think for a moment about the important decisions you've made in your life. How many of them benefited from a period of waiting, reflection, maturation? Jung firmly believed that our unconscious constantly works to resolve our conflicts, integrate our shadows, guide us toward our individuation. But this work requires time, requires silence, requires patience. And when we refuse to give that space, when we insist on immediate results, we're ignoring the wisdom of our deeper self. Patience is not passivity. This is a common misunderstanding that Jung strove to clarify. True patience is active, conscious, a decision to trust the process while continuing to move forward at a pace that respects your inner nature. It doesn't mean giving up or resigning. It means aligning your actions with the natural rhythm of your evolution. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to advance effortlessly while you feel like you're rowing against the current? Jung would say that perhaps you're ignoring the signals from your unconscious, those whispers trying to guide you toward your true path. The resistance you feel is not a punishment or an indication that you're failing. It's an invitation to listen more deeply, to adjust your course, to find the flow that is unique to you. The unconscious, according to Jung, is not something we should fear or repress. It's our deepest source of wisdom, our inner guide that always knows what we need, even when our conscious mind is confused. When you learn to listen to those messages, to respect that inner voice, you discover that patience is not a burden, but a gift. It allows you to move with grace instead of constantly struggling. Think about nature. Have you ever seen a tree rush its growth for fear of not being tall enough? Have you seen a seed force itself to bloom prematurely? Nature intuitively understands the value of patience, the power of trusting the process. And we, as part of that nature, have that same wisdom encoded in our being. We just need to remember it, reconnect with that ancestral knowledge we've forgotten amid the noise and rush of the modern world. Jung firmly believed in the individuation process, that unique path by which each person becomes who they are truly meant to be. This journey is not a straight line. It's full of twists, apparent setbacks, moments of confusion. But each step, even those that seem to take us backward, is necessary. Those periods you interpret as stagnation are actually moments of integration, where your being is assimilating the lessons learned, preparing for the next leap in your evolution. Impatience, at its core, is a lack of trust. It's doubting that the universe, your unconscious, your own nature, knows exactly what you need and when you need it. It's believing that you, with your limited conscious perspective, know better than that innate wisdom that has guided you since the moment of your birth. Jung invites us to let go of that illusory control, to trust that there is a much vaster intelligence working through you. Remember that relationship that ended and left you devastated? At that moment, you probably felt you had failed, that you had lost something invaluable. But looking back, can you see how that apparent failure prepared you for something better? How it taught you about yourself, about what you really need in a partner, about the patterns you needed to break? Jung would see this as a perfect example of how what we perceive as failure is really our soul learning patience, preparing us for a deeper and more authentic connection. Or perhaps it was that professional project that didn't take off, that opportunity that slipped through your fingers. In the moment, you felt you had failed, that you weren't good enough. But what if that experience was exactly what you needed to refine your skills, to clarify your vision, to redirect your energy towards something more aligned with your true purpose? Jung teaches us to see these apparent failures not as endpoints, but as commas in the ongoing narrative of our life. Impatience can also manifest as an obsession with the future, a constant when that robs us of the ability to be present. When will I achieve success? When will I find love? When will I have the life I desire? Jung would remind us that life is not something that happens at some point in the future. It's happening right now. And every moment you spend yearning for an imagined future is a moment you lose experiencing your present fully, which is where all the magic of transformation actually occurs. One of the most profound aspects of Jung's thinking is his understanding of shadows, those parts of ourselves that we repress, deny, or ignore. Impatience often arises from our inability to face these shadows. We want to move forward without doing the necessary inner work, without integrating those rejected parts of ourselves. But Jung knew there are no shortcuts in this process. True transformation requires us to look honestly at those parts of ourselves we prefer to ignore, and that work requires time, requires patience. Have you ever noticed how just when you're about to give up, a sign appears, an opportunity, a clarity that didn't exist before? Jung would speak of this as the moment when you finally surrender to the wisdom of your unconscious, when you stop fighting and start flowing. It's in that surrender where we find our greatest strength, our true direction. But to reach that point, we must first cross the desert of uncertainty, the dark night of the soul that precedes all true transformation. Modern culture has conditioned us to see patience as a weakness, as a lack of ambition or determination. But Jung understood that true patience is one of the most powerful qualities we can cultivate. It's the ability to stand firm in the midst of the storm, to trust our process even when we can't see the final result. It's the strength to remain in uncertainty without succumbing to despair or quick but superficial solutions. Have you ever found yourself comparing yourself to others, feeling that you're moving too slowly, that they've achieved more in less time? Jung would remind us that each human being has their own internal clock, their own unique rhythm of development. Comparing yourself to others is not only useless but harmful because it takes you away from your own path, from your own individuation process. The only valid comparison is with yourself, with who you were yesterday, with the growth you've experienced in your own unique journey. Impatience can also manifest as a resistance to being where we are. We want to be anywhere but in the present, especially if that present involves pain, confusion, or uncertainty. But Jung knew that it's precisely in those uncomfortable moments where our greatest transformation occurs. It's in the crucible of difficulty where our true self emerges, where we discover internal resources we didn't know we had. Patience allows us to inhabit those difficult spaces, extract their lessons, allow them to transform us. Imagine for a moment that you could see your entire life from above, like a complete tapestry. You would see how each apparent failure, each delay, each period of stagnation was actually an essential part of the larger design. You would see how those moments you interpreted as failures were actually redirections towards something better, something more aligned with your true self. This is the perspective Jung invites us to adopt, a broader vision that allows us to trust the process, even when we can't see the final result. Patience also implies acceptance, not as passive resignation, but as a conscious recognition of what is. Jung clearly distinguished between passive acceptance, which is simply giving up, and active acceptance, which is recognizing reality as it is while consciously working with it. When we accept where we are, without resistance, without judgment, we release an enormous amount of energy that was previously trapped in the struggle, in denial. And that released energy is exactly what we need to create the change we desire. Have you noticed how, sometimes, the more you strive to achieve something, the more it seems to move away from you? Jung would explain this as a disconnection between your conscious will and the deeper needs of your soul. When we force an outcome because we believe it's time already, we're ignoring the wisdom of our unconscious, which knows exactly what experiences we need and in what order for our maximum growth. Patience allows us to align our conscious will with that deeper wisdom, creating flow instead of struggle. One of Jung's most profound teachings is the idea that everything in our life, even what we perceive as negative or painful, has a purpose. Every delay, every obstacle, every apparent failure is an opportunity for growth, for integration, for self-discovery. When we see our life through this lens, impatience naturally dissolves. We no longer need things to happen according to our timeline because we trust they are happening exactly as they should, at the perfect moment for our highest good. Patience also connects us with something greater than ourselves. Jung spoke extensively about the connection between the personal and the collective, how our individual journey intertwines with the collective journey of humanity. When we cultivate patience, we tune into vaster rhythms, natural cycles that existed long before us and will continue long after. This connection gives us a broader perspective, an understanding that our apparent failures are just a small dot in a much larger tapestry. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to radiate an inner calm, a serene confidence, even in the midst of adversity? Jung would say these people have learned the art of active patience. They're not simply waiting passively. They're consciously participating in their evolution process, trusting that each step, each delay, each apparent setback has a purpose. They've learned to listen to the wisdom of their unconscious and follow its subtle indications, instead of being driven by the demands of the ego or external pressures. Impatience at its core is fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of falling behind, fear of missing opportunities. Jung deeply understood how fear can distort our perception, make us believe we need immediate results to be valid, to be worthy. But he also showed us that when we dare to face those fears, to examine them honestly, we discover they are largely illusory. We don't need to rush our process to be worthy. We already are, exactly as we are, exactly where we are. Patience allows us to experience the present moment in all its richness, when we're not constantly projecting ourselves into the future, yearning for what has not yet arrived. We can fully immerse ourselves in what is. And it's in that full immersion where we find not only peace, but also a clarity that's not available when we're divided between here and there, now and later. Jung would remind us that life is not something that will happen when we finally arrive. It's happening right now, in each breath, in each moment of awareness. Have you noticed how your best ideas, your moments of greatest clarity, often come when you least expect them? Perhaps in the shower, or taking a walk, or just before falling asleep. Jung would explain this as moments when your conscious mind relaxes enough to allow the wisdom of your unconscious to emerge. Impatience keeps your conscious mind in a state of constant tension, blocking this vital communication. Patience, on the other hand, creates the necessary space for this internal dialogue to occur, allowing solutions and perspectives to emerge that you could not have generated with conscious thought alone. One of the most powerful metaphors Jung used was that of the alchemist. In medieval alchemy, the transformation of lead into gold was not just a physical process, but a metaphor for internal spiritual transformation. And this process could not be rushed. It required time, required attention, required patience. The alchemist who tried to accelerate the process only managed to ruin it. In the same way, when we try to rush our internal transformation, when we become impatient with our process, we often sabotage the deeper work happening beneath the surface. Patience also allows us to see synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences Jung considered manifestations of a deeper order in the universe. When we're constantly projected into the future, anxious about what has not yet arrived, we miss the subtle signs, the doors that open, the paths that reveal themselves in the present moment. Patience sharpens our perception, allows us to notice those golden threads of meaning that are interwoven in the seemingly random fabric of our lives. Have you ever experienced how, after a period of intense struggle and frustration, suddenly a clarity emerges, a peace you can't explain? It's as if something inside you finally clicks, as if all the pieces suddenly fit together effortlessly. Jung would speak of this as the moment when your unconscious has finally integrated a lesson, resolved an internal conflict that was creating tension. But this process cannot be forced. It requires time, requires patience. It's like waiting for a fruit to ripen. You can create optimal conditions, but the process has its own intrinsic rhythm. Impatience can also manifest as a resistance to the unknown. We want certainties, we want guarantees, we want a detailed map before venturing into unexplored territory. But Jung would remind us that true growth occurs precisely in those spaces of uncertainty, in those moments when we don't know what will come next. Patience gives us the courage to inhabit those liminal spaces, to trust that although we cannot see the complete path, the next step will reveal itself when we're ready to take it. One of the most revolutionary aspects of Jung's thinking is his understanding of the cyclical nature of growth. Instead of seeing our evolution as an always ascending straight line, he saw it as a spiral. Sometimes we need to revisit old lessons, integrate aspects we thought we had overcome, face shadows we thought we had illuminated. These apparent setbacks are not failures. They're opportunities for deeper integration, for more complete learning. Patience allows us to accept this cyclical nature, to trust that even moments that seem to take us backward are actually part of moving forward. Have you noticed how, sometimes, just when you think you've reached a goal, a new challenge emerges, a new complexity you hadn't anticipated? Jung would see this not as a sign of failure, but as an indication that you're ready for a deeper level of learning. of integration. Life is not about reaching a final destination where all problems are solved. It's about a continuous unfolding, a constant unraveling of ever deeper layers of your being. And this process has no end. It continues as long as we're alive, always offering us new opportunities for growth, for expansion, for transformation. Patience also has a profound impact on our relationships. When we stop trying to force others to change according to our timeline, when we give them the space to be exactly who they are in this moment, our connections deepen. Jung understood that each person has their own individuation process, their own unique rhythm of development. Impatience in relationships often arises from our desire to control, to make others conform to our expectations. Patience frees us from that need, allowing us to see and honor others in their totality, with their lights and their shadows. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where it seems everything you try fails, where every door you knock on remains closed? Jung would interpret this not as a punishment or a failure, but as a clear sign that you need to recalibrate, reevaluate, perhaps even redefine what you're looking for. These periods of apparent stagnation are actually opportunities for a deep readjustment, to question our assumptions, to clarify our true desires. Patience allows us to inhabit these spaces of uncertainty without panic, trusting that clarity will eventually emerge. Impatience can also manifest as an addiction to progress, a constant need to feel that we're advancing, achieving, reaching. This mentality, so prevalent in our modern culture, keeps us in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction, always looking for the next goal, the next achievement, without ever stopping to savor what we've already accomplished. Jung would invite us to question this obsession with linear progress, to recognize that true growth cannot always be measured or quantified, that it often occurs in moments of stillness, reflection, integration. One of the most beautiful paradoxes Jung explored is how sometimes to move forward, we must first stop. Patience allows us to create those moments of pause, of stillness, where we can listen to the deeper wisdom that emerges from within. It's in those spaces of apparent non-action where we often find the clarity, the inspiration, the direction we couldn't have discovered in the midst of constant activity. Have you ever experienced how, after intensely struggling with a problem, you suddenly find the solution when you least expect it? Jung would explain this as the result of allowing your unconscious to work on the problem without the interference of your conscious mind. Patience creates the space for this process to occur, for solutions and ideas to emerge organically in their own time, instead of being forced by conscious will. Patience also connects us with an ancestral wisdom we've forgotten in our accelerated world. All spiritual traditions, all profound philosophies have valued patience as an essential virtue, as a path to wisdom and inner peace. Jung, with his deep knowledge of these traditions, reminds us that this wisdom remains relevant, perhaps more than ever, in a world that seems to value speed above depth, quantity above quality. When you finally understand that you're not failing, that your soul is simply learning patience, something profound changes within you. You no longer feel in constant competition, in perpetual struggle. You begin to trust your process, to respect your unique rhythm, to honor the wisdom of your deeper self. This change not only transforms your relationship with yourself, but also your relationship with the world around you. You become more compassionate, more present, more able to see the beauty in the gradual unfolding of life, both in yourself and in others. And now what? How do you bring this understanding to your daily life? Begin by observing where impatience manifests in your experience. Where do you feel frustrated, desperate, anxious for immediate results? These are precisely the places where your soul is inviting you to learn patience, to trust more deeply, to surrender to a process that is much wiser than your conscious plans. Practice active acceptance of where you are now, not as resignation, but as honest recognition of your present reality. From this acceptance, you can make conscious decisions, Take steps aligned with your inner truth without the distortion of anxiety or pressure. Remember that patience is not passivity. It's a deeply powerful form of action that respects the natural rhythm of life. Cultivate trust in your process. Remember moments in your past where what seemed like a failure eventually led you to something better, where what you interpreted as a delay turned out to be exactly the time you needed to prepare. These experiences are evidence that you can trust your path even when you cannot clearly see where it's leading you. Allow yourself to rest when you need it. Impatience often pushes us to constant activity, to incessant doing, without respecting the natural rhythms of effort and recovery. Jung understood the importance of rest, reflection, stillness as essential parts of the growth process. Don't judge yourself when you need to slow down, when you need a moment to recharge, to integrate, to simply be. Remember that your value is not determined by your achievements, by your speed, by your productivity. You are inherently valuable, exactly as you are, exactly where you are on your path. This understanding releases an enormous amount of energy that was previously trapped in the struggle, in the attempt to prove your worth. And it's precisely this released energy that allows you to move forward naturally, organically, without the tension and effort that arise from impatience. And finally, share this understanding with others. In a world that glorifies speed, immediate success, constant progress, your acceptance of patience as an essential virtue, as a path to wisdom, can be a beacon for those who are also struggling, who also feel trapped in the feeling of failure. Your testimony of how patience has transformed your relationship with yourself and with your path may be exactly what someone else needs to hear. This message is a reminder: you're not failing. Your soul is learning one of the most important lessons a human being can experience: patience. And in that learning, you're discovering a way of being that is more authentic, more fulfilling, more aligned with your true nature. It's a journey worth taking, a process that deserves your trust, your respect, your conscious participation. Did this message resonate with you? Do you recognize in your own life those moments where you interpreted as failure what was really your soul learning patience? I'd love to hear your reflections in the comments. Each shared experience not only enriches our collective understanding, but may also be exactly what someone else needs to read today. If this message touched something in you, share it with those you believe might benefit. In a world that constantly pushes us to go faster, to achieve more, to be better, this reminder of the wisdom of patience is like an oasis in the desert, a space to breathe, to remember a deeper truth about who we are and how we grow. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future messages that, like this one, seek to illuminate aspects of our human experience that we often overlook in the rush of everyday life. Let's build together a community that values depth over speed, authenticity over appearance, true transformation over superficial change. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Each of us is learning at our own pace the lessons our soul needs to evolve. And patience, that virtue so devalued in our times, is perhaps the most transformative of all. Carl Jung understood that our psychological development does not follow a predetermined timeline. What we interpret as delays, obstacles, or failures are actually opportunities for deeper integration. Those moments when you feel stuck, when nothing is moving forward as it should, are precisely the moments when your unconscious is doing its most important work. Think about this. How many times have you looked back and realized that what at the time seemed like a terrible failure was actually a redirection towards something much better? How many times have you been grateful that something didn't work out as you expected, because it opened doors you didn't even know existed? Jung taught us that the unconscious is always working for our highest good, even when we cannot see it. That relationship that didn't prosper, that job you didn't get, that project that collapsed, all of it may be part of a larger, wiser plan than anything your conscious mind could design. The next time you feel that pang of impatience, that harsh judgment toward yourself for not moving forward fast enough, pause. Take a deep breath and remember, you're not failing. Your soul is learning patience, and in that learning there is a treasure that will transform not only your path, but also who you are on that path. We're accustomed to measuring our worth by our achievements, by our speed, by our productivity. But Jung invites us to a deeper understanding. Your value is inherent. It doesn't depend on what you do or how quickly you do it. You are valuable simply because you exist, because you are a unique expression of consciousness, an unrepeatable facet of the universe experiencing itself. From this understanding, patience ceases to be a burden, a test to endure, and becomes a gift, an opportunity to experience life in a fuller, more present, more conscious way. You're no longer constantly projected into the future, yearning for what has not yet arrived. You're fully here now, experiencing the richness of the present moment with all its lessons, its challenges, its blessings. If this message has resonated with you, I invite you to share it. In a world obsessed with speed, with immediate results, this reminder of the wisdom of patience may be exactly what someone needs to hear today. Perhaps you know someone who is struggling with the feeling of failure, who feels trapped, stagnant, desperate to see results that seem not to come. Share this video with that person. It could be precisely the light they need at this moment in their journey. And if it's you who is crossing that desert of impatience, I want you to know that you're not alone. We've all been there. We've all felt that desperation, that feeling that everyone is moving forward except us. But as Jung showed us, that experience is an integral part of our individuation process, of becoming who we are truly meant to be. Let me know in the comments how this message has resonated with you. Can you identify moments in your life where patience revealed a wisdom you couldn't have discovered any other way? Are you currently going through a situation that requires that active patience, that trust in a process you cannot fully control? Your experiences, your reflections, your questions not only enrich this community, but may also be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Don't underestimate the power of your words, of your testimony, to touch lives, to offer perspectives, to remind of deep truths we sometimes forget in the rush of day-to-day life. If you're not yet part of this community, I invite you to subscribe. Each week we explore together these deep dimensions of human experience, these timeless truths that thinkers like Jung have bequeathed to us, and that have the power to transform our relationship with ourselves, with others, with life itself. Remember, in a world that constantly pushes you to go faster, to achieve more, to be better, choosing patience is a revolutionary act. It's saying no to external pressure and yes to internal wisdom. It's trusting that your soul knows exactly what you need and when you need it. It's honoring your unique process, your unrepeatable path to fulfillment. You're not failing. Your soul is learning patience. And in that learning, there is a deeper, more lasting, more authentic transformation than you could have imagined. Trust the process. Trust your soul. Trust that in due time, everything you need will arrive, and you will be ready to receive it.